So I know I've been hard on Athlean-X so far on this channel. I'm gonna add a little bit of nuance to this conversation with this review. When I first started taking my training seriously a few years ago, Athlean-X on YouTube was one of the first resources that I turned to consistently. Look, I didn't have a lot of disposable income at the time, so $100 on a program seemed a little out of my reach. I got a lot of info from the videos that increased my confidence in the gym and also my curiosity to continue learning more. So I'd been running Athlean-X's perfect total body workout as a sort of program and decided it was time to spring for the upgraded version. I knew that I enjoyed full body training, so this seemed like a natural fit because as far as I can tell, it remains the only total body split that he has on Athlean-X.com, and the promise of developing total athleticism rather than just strength and size was very appealing to me. Now, this is the program that made me believe Athlean-X was onto something special. But the question is, does it hold up in hindsight? In short, I would say the answer is yes. I honestly do think that if you want to buy an Athlean-X program, this is probably the one to get for most people. Stick to the end of this video, as I do have some very specific suggestions for how to modify the program to get the most of it. So Total Beaxst is a total body split. So it's 3 main workouts per week that are interspersed with regeneration workouts. They basically serve as a sort of GPP day, mixing conditioning, corrective work, and abs. The selling point is that it's meant to be more robust than a strength and hypertrophy program. There's not a lot of conditioning, but one thing it does have plenty of is power training. So explosive movements like hang cleans and box jumps, which on its own can make this a lot more fun than a more standard strength program. And unlike the previous 2 programs that I've reviewed, this one actually has 3 built-in variations for beginner, intermediate, and advanced trainees. So it scales to your abilities a lot better, in my opinion, than AX1 or 2. The intermediate and advanced versions primarily incorporate more volume, mostly in the form of more exercises per session. In the advanced version, it incorporates some density techniques that I would say most closely resemble something like myo reps or rest pause training, essentially finding ways to cram more reps into a limited time frame with as little rest as you can manage. For my thoughts on the meal plan, see my review of AX1, or you can watch me and Raven reviewing the marketing material for AXX, where we also go into a couple days of the meal plan in some detail. Getting hot in here. For effectiveness, I'm giving this a 1. The workouts are generally built around 2 push, 2 pull, and 2 legs exercises. That changes a little bit as the program goes on, but that's incorporation of some kind of push, pull, and legs movement is very consistent throughout. You got your squat, reverse lunge, deadlift, hip thrust, chin up, dip, bench press, lying tricep extensions, barbell curl, dumbbell high pull, overhead press, and barbell row. Mostly compound movements, mostly using barbells. I love me a consistent set of mains that you can progress over 12 weeks, so seeing this makes me happy. You are expected to take most of your working sets to failure. He does say in the first week's video that he's aiming for technical failure, basically ensuring that you never need to use a spotter. But either way, this kind of high RPE protocol is great for hypertrophy, but it's not really ideal for strength development, especially as you emerge from your newbie gains. Strength will improve best when you end a set just as the bar is beginning to slow down, which for most people will imply you've got 3 or 4 reps in the tank. So taking everything to failure actually has the potential of holding back strength gains just because the fatigue that you're building up is going to make it harder to get stronger by the next session. The rest is also insufficient. Across the board, it generally recommends 60 to 90 seconds. If you're doing that for like a 4 to 5 rep max load to failure, you're going to be under recovered set to set, and you're probably going to see your performance crash pretty hard, especially if you've reached a point where you've built any real strength at all on these movements. As far as the correctives, they're maybe kind of useful, but don't feel a need to stick to them that much. Unless you're rehabilitating a specific injury, in which case this type of exercise would have been prescribed by your physiotherapist, or if you're trying to bring up a specific weakness, if you know for a fact that your rotator cuff is what's holding you back from your pressing movements and you want to give that a little love and attention. go for it. But by and large, I would say these are skippable. The conditioning is prescribed in a flush conditioning modality. So instead of trying to bring up your conditioning, it's actually meant as a recovery tool. I think I agree with the use, but not with the reasoning. Having improved cardio overall can improve the speed at which you recover between sessions and even between sets. Doing the conditioning probably isn't the driver for that in the short term. What I mean is, it's not like you've got a whole bunch of metabolites that are just sitting in your muscles a day after your workout that need to be flushed out. That's probably not real. I'm yet to see any science behind that. And if you really wanted to improve the pace of your recovery, I would personally be replacing these days with some aerobic work, like a half-hour jog, or biking if you want to keep it lower impact, since that would more directly improve your overall ability to recover. That said, the conditioning drills that are included are pretty fun, and I like that you get to choose between a few different options each session. The use of overcoming isometrics in the second block is genuinely interesting to me. I don't really know much about their application in a program like this. The rationale is essentially that it's supposed to help you recruit more motor units. I don't know too much about that. I can't really comment on its effectiveness. It probably imposes no recovery cost, and if you find it fun to do, then by all means, this is a good thing to have in the program. The periodization strategy is mostly weekly undulation, so you'll be doing an exercise in like the 4 to 6 rep range one week and then 10 to 12 rep range the next week. And so you're flipping between those intensities. That has been shown to be a pretty effective way to get stronger. So I dig. All in all, we have a program here that is pretty good for hypertrophy, okay for strength, and pretty good for power as well, and not especially good for conditioning. For usability, same score, 1 out of 2. The loading parameters are a little confusing the way that it's written. Everything is loaded as some kind of RM, meaning rep max. So if something says 4 to 5 RM, you're meant to take the exercise to failure within 4 to 5 reps. Doing that with something like a bench press or a squat, that's friggin' hard, but I can understand the idea. Doing skull crushers or lying triceps extensions in a 4 to 5 rep max is a little weird, and I think it speaks to an effort to make the overall structure rhyme and look cohesive, as opposed to really looking movement to movement of what would really make sense. The book-ended sets that you see periodically, especially in the first block, where you do 2 sets at your 4 to 5 RM, then you do a bunch of other exercises, and then you come back to those same first 2 exercises at the same load and do 2 more sets. That's never really explained as to why you're doing that. I imagine the idea is that to accommodate the fatigue, you're taking some time away from those exercises, doing the rest of your workout, then coming back, having had some time to recover. In principle, I understand this, but in practice, I was so exhausted from all the other work I was doing that even though those muscles theoretically had been given time to recover, I simply could not replicate that effort. Plus, you're also running into a potential problem where you may have to now repeat your warm-up sets rather than jumping back in at that working weight. And of course, there's the logistical problem of having to set up your bar all over again, and you may not even have access to one by that point in the workout, depending on how busy the gym is. I don't like it, and I don't think you should do it that way, and I don't like that it's written that way without a reasonable explanation. The same approach is used in an even more exhausting fashion in the third phase, where you do a 4 RM, then an 8 RM, then a 16 RM, followed by an AMRAP having loaded back up to your 4 RM. Again, going back to something like the deadlift, chances are you are very tired having done 4, 8, and 16 reps all the way to failure. Trying to load back up to that previous heavy weight and doing even 1 rep may not be possible for you. Just the act of stripping and then adding back the plates to my deadlift was a total nightmare. And for some lifts like the overhead press, again, I simply couldn't even do 1 rep. My shoulders were just too tired. And this is doubly a problem if you are sticking to the 60 to 90 seconds of rest between sets, which chances are you spent that whole interval swapping out plates. I don't like it at all, and I think it makes the program needlessly difficult without having a justification. Now, the power days use percentages of your 1 rep max, which makes a lot of sense, but there's no guidance on how to test your 1RM for those chosen exercises. I think there's a calculator built in. You're not given any suggestions, so if you're not familiar with how to do a 1-rep max test on something like that, it might be a little bit difficult for you to figure out. In flexibility, I give it 1.5. Say it ain't so! An Athlean-X program with flexibility built in? I gotta admit, Cavalier did a good job of having some scalability built in, primarily through this base, beast, and total beast modes, these variations for beginner, intermediate, and advanced trainees. One detail I'm particularly fond of is that you can very easily change which mode you're on, even day to day, even during the workout, theoretically speaking. I think that's genuinely great. I think that's a really good, very intuitive approach, and it hands a lot of autonomy to the trainee, which I'm always in favor of. You also get to choose your conditioning work on each of these GPP days. That is mostly built around a handful of circuits using some different equipment. And you're encouraged on days where you feel particularly beaten up to pick one of the two more stretching-oriented options. The advanced version of the program includes some density techniques that resemble rest pause or cluster sets. So you're getting more reps at those higher loads in a very short duration of time. It's a fun way to challenge yourself, but it's also friggin' hard. So if you're running this, don't feel super attached. If you're getting the shit kicked out of you and you want to step it back down to the intermediate mode, there is no shame in working exclusively out of straight sets. On enjoyability, 1.5. The program does a lot to combine a consistent library of movements in ways that feel like there's a ton of variety. The power days in particular were always a favorite. I'll say understandably so. Explosive movements are fun. I do really like the challenges. The celebrity cameos felt a bit awkward and forced, especially given the fact they don't even demonstrate the challenge itself. I get that Cavalier came up with all of these. These aren't created by The Bar or that one-legged monster. They just showed up to give the program a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of flavor. You do you, Jeff. I think it's friggin' weird. But all that said, I have used the bar challenge with clients as a conditioning circuit. I do think it's a pretty fun circuit. The Monster Mayhem challenge, which is built around the power lifts, I really remember enjoying at the time. It was a really fun way to have kind of a scored approach to the power lifts using loading that is built around your body weight. So thumbs up from me. I've also used the arm circuits that are used in the final block with at least one client. There's a lot of enjoyable elements to Total Beast. For whatever other faults I can find in it, this is not one of them. Reviewing this program is honestly a valuable reminder for me that a sense of play is very important when working out, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive from making a workout effective. You can gamify stuff. I mean, CrossFit is very embracing of that idea. There's a reason why it's as popular as it is. Trainers like myself, I think we tend to be very self-serious and focusing on optimization, and every single thing has to have a very clear purpose. And I still do believe that, but there are ways you can have your cake and eat it too, is I guess what I'm saying. Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're less likely to stick with it. I'm going to ding half a point for any program that expects me to take 4 sets of squats and deadlifts to failure, especially as you get stronger and those absolute loads begin to get higher. You can criticize me, you can call me a wimp as much as you like, but you know what? This is a hobby. Preferences matter, especially on movements that are this fatiguing, since, frankly, continuing to push all the way to failure on these big, heavy lifts, that is something that's going to bolster your injury risk quite a bit. And no amount of technical practice is going to save you there. I'm not saying it's a likelihood, just saying it's not worth the risk, in my opinion. On value, full points, I'm giving it a 2. The portal, the videos, the GIFs, the logbook, it's all there. And the portal was actually just recently upgraded. I find it very well designed. I find it very easy to interact with. I got no dings to offer on the value front. Now, I do have recommendations if you are going to run this program. I would suggest modifying it in the following ways. Keep your heavy work shy of failure, especially if strength is important to you and you want to increase your strength on these movements as much as you can. Leave reps in the tank. Leave 2 to 3 reps in reserve. For exercises where rep work is more in the 8+ range, I think it's fine to push harder, even all the way to failure if you want to. But on those lower rep sets, those like 4 to 6, hold a little bit back. You will be rewarded for it. Ignore the bookended sets. I've already hinted at this, but I really don't think they're there for a good enough reason. For someone especially who is using a public gym, has to move around between equipment. You don't want to have to secure that equipment again at the end of your workout. Just do yourself the favor. And those straight sets are going to be just fine, especially if you rest way longer than prescribed, especially on the heavy work. For things where you're doing 4 to 6 reps, and if you are taking those to failure, I'd say 2 to 3 minutes rest is much more reasonable. If you're crunched for time, feel free to condense that, but just understand that that is a trade-off you are choosing to make here. And lastly, consider adding 30 to 60 minutes of aerobic work throughout the week if you want to fully round out your athletic development. The conditioning that is currently here, this sort of burst/flush conditioning, is okay, but especially if you want to improve your overall recovery and your work capacity in session, getting in, again, just one session of 30 to 60 minutes will absolutely make a difference for you. Now, if you want to get more of an understanding of the principles of athletic training, I have a video on that you can check out here. If you've run this program yourself, I'm happy to hear your thoughts about it in the comments below. And let me know if you have any other programs that you would like me to review. Thanks for watching. Now go get friggin' strong, bub.